How's it going, everyone? All good? Okay, so this is me. I've spent nearly 30 years in the industry, working a long time with Pernod Ricard. But now I've got the chance to work with Cincoro Tequila, which is a great chance to create a legacy of creating a new route to market outside of the US, which you're going to hear about today. So I talk about the rise of agave spirits outside of the US. So that's the specific thing I want to look at because that's my territory. But first, let's talk a bit about the brand that I'm representing. I've got a couple of lovely bottles here. These are our little half bottles, which are super cute. But it all started back in 2016. A nice dinner was going on with a few people you might recognize, but these are our founders. And the founders include people like Michael Jordan, the NBA star, but also the owners of the Celtics, the Lakers, the Milwaukee Bucks, basically heads, billionaires of these companies that all love tequila. And they came together wanting to change tequila and make a tequila that tasted delicious. Now, I've worked in this industry a long time, and normally you don't describe tequila as delicious. But we believe we have. And they spent 3 years, this wasn't just a little tasting, 3 years and 1,000 tequilas later to come up with a tequila that really is very different and I dare I say, delicious. And one slide I particularly like is the one with all the medals. Because often people will say to me, you know, okay, you've got Michael Jordan, but is the liquid any good? And the fact that we were winning medals on day one, like double blind, no one knew the name, the price point, who made it, what the bottle looked like, but they were winning double golds. It really is excellent liquid. We then moved on to creating a stunning bottle. And Michael Jordan went to the Air Jordan designer, this guy Mark Smith, who had never designed a bottle before, never designed an alcohol, and said, I want you to design a bottle for me. And they came up with a stunning bottle, which is shaped like an agave leaf, has a 23-degree angle because of the number 23 on Michael Jordan's shirt, has got 5 sides, which is really unusual for a bottle representing the 5 founders. It's a very cool bottle, which you obviously need at the very high end that we are. And that's really helped. So you've got great story, delicious liquid, and stunning bottle. And their focus for the first 4 or 5 years was in the US. That's the biggest tequila market. That's where they should go. Getting 5-star distribution, doing luxury events. And only in 2023 did they bring on new investors to go even further globally. And you'll recognize some of the pictures there. Serena Williams, Travis Scott, and a bunch of other really well-known, top-of-their-game people. So we've now got the investment to go global, and that's what I'm talking about today. So that's the brand we're talking about. Okay. So back to when I started. So I've been in the job for pretty much 2 years now. The first question I had was where to go first. And if you're in tequila, you're probably asking a similar question. So, you know, the world's a big place. My remit was everywhere out of North America. Where should we focus? And crucially, let's get the management team agreeing to that strategy, because otherwise they'll come to you in a year saying, why didn't you go after this market? Now let's align first on where to go after and make sure everyone agrees with you. So we did quite a fun segmentation, and normally you would look at where the biggest tequila markets, and absolutely that was one of our key pillars. But then we added on things like how many people like basketball in that country? Who knows Michael Jordan? How many searches are they doing? Things like that. And finally, we had some macro data. And we added those 3 pillars together, and that gave us a scoring which would then rank the top markets around the world. So nearly what would be the size of the prize, and where is our ability to win? And that's given us a list, and this is our list. So this is where we said, based on the scores there, we should focus our time and energy on. So obviously in the US and Canada we were there anyway, but Dominican Republic was an interesting one. Across Europe we have our 5 or 6 key priority markets, including where we are today, Germany. Middle East and Africa, Israel and the Middle East. And across Asia, some really good markets there. China, Korea, Japan, Australia, Indonesia, Singapore. Those markets are really ranking very highly. So that gave me my roadmap of where I should target. And I probably had that within about 6 weeks of joining. And we added on to that global travel retail. So we want to showcase in the key markets in travel retail, Plus, if a market comes along and says, hey, I'll take you, and there weren't too much effort and we make some good volumes, why not? But the priority and the investment should be in those ones on the left. So where are we today? And we're talking about less than 2 years after the journey started. So this is where we did start, so the orange bit. I did have this in red and blue, but everyone thought I was talking Republican and Democrats, so orange. Before we were in the orange bit, and today we're in the green. So there's been a really nice movement from getting into those priority markets, and pretty much we've signed off everyone that we were looking for. Japan is the one exception that I'm not in yet. But this is the list of the markets where distribution has been signed and we're now starting to sell, which I think most people would agree is an unusually fast expansion. And I'm going to come on to why we think that is. But we're starting to really look for being a global brand and having global presence. So 3 key things about why we think it's been so fast and why that expansion's allowed to happen. And I think the first one is that interest in tequila that we're starting to see. So you've seen this slide. But why does that make a difference? The reason it makes a difference is that when a distributor, and you're having that conversation with a distributor in a market, and we work on a third-party model, so we'll go to markets and say, okay, we want to come to you, are you interested? When they know that tequila's rising so fast, and they know that the high price point stuff's rising so fast as well, clearly they're open to the conversation. So that was point 1. Point 2 is our package, and I don't mean our packaging, although that's part of it. Our package in terms of the story, in particular the liquid, and the bottle resonates. So when you talk about the story, when you go through, you show them the packaging, and you taste the product, which is the key one, yep, okay, that works for me. We think that can fit into my local portfolio. And from a consumer perspective, equally, that works as well. And finally, I think at Cincoro, we have a different way of doing business than maybe working with the big boys. Like I've spent 21 years at Pernod Ricard, a great company, but typically it will be, quite rightly so maybe, slower. And if you're going to grow at the pace we've grown at, you have to be faster. So we're pragmatic, we're agile, and we sign contracts quite quickly if we meet with the right people. The story I say sometimes is I was in Taiwan, I just met a Taiwan distributor. We'd done our research, we knew they were right, but literally in the airport on the way home, I was finishing the contract to then send them on an email 2 hours after the meeting, and that wouldn't happen in bigger companies. So 3 factors. You've got the interest in tequila, the Cincoro package, and a way of doing business that seems to work. And finally, I've tried to think about what might be some tips that I would say, 2 years on, why it's gone so well. I think the first one is knowing where you're going, and I've already covered that prioritization that we talked about. So selecting your countries, but do it in a way that's analytical and makes sense. You can't just go to the boss and say, I want to go after these places. You need to have a strong rationale that you can defend. The next one is to be careful and clear on your trade focus. Clearly, at the price point we're at, you don't want to be everywhere. You don't want to be in every single supermarket or every single bar. You want to be very clear on where you should be targeting. So, and that will depend on the brand you have and the price point you have. But at our price point, you want to be in 5-star on-premise. You want to be particularly in very high-end restaurants. You might go to nightclubs. You want to be in e-commerce where you can really play with the big boys and have your brand showing really well. And you want to be in the top end of off-premise, but not everywhere in off-premise, otherwise you'll be gathering dust. Pricing is so important. And some people might think that when you're a young, small startup, you should just go for wherever the opportunity is. But if you get your pricing wrong, it will come back and haunt you in the future. So getting your pricing right from a consumer perspective, what you're benchmarking, what competitors you're benchmarking, from a trade perspective to make sure the value chain works, and also that you don't end up with too low pricing that then you have grey market, parallel goods ending up in different markets where you don't want to be. So that was key for us. We also created a legal template. So with a lawyer, but rather than having to pay for a lawyer each time to make a template, make a contract for a market, we had a template where we could go in, adjust the market name, adjust the distributor name, and pretty much there you have a template that you can send to a market and say, here's your contract. Very official, correct, but not needing a lawyer every time. That's going to take your time to do and the money to spend on the lawyer. Another thing is being able to sell yourself. And this sounds a bit weird, and I remember when I talked here last year, I talked about how sometimes it feels a bit like doing Tinder. Not that I've done Tinder before, but apparently you have to swipe right or swipe left. And you really have, both of you have to swipe right. So that means that the distributor has to like what you're saying, and you have to like what the distributors are saying. Because I remember having a conversation with my boss once where, well, we just need to go for the best distributor. Well, yes, you do, but you also need to go for a distributor that wants to sell you as well. So you both have to swipe right. And in order that they love you or swipe for you, you have to be able to sell yourself with things like your brand deck, your sales sheets, your assets, to have all the support that they need to make you work in their market. Carefully selecting your distributors is equally important. And you'll never get it exactly right. And you want to do your research, you want to investigate what portfolio they have, but also ask what people think about them. And sometimes trust your gut. There are some instances where they just didn't feel right, and I've looked back on that thinking that was exactly the right call. And sometimes don't be too much in a rush and go with the wrong people, because you could be with them for 5-10 years, and that's a relationship that you don't want to be in. And finally, just for fun at the end, embrace any luck as well. So there's been a few markets that I wasn't necessarily going to go after. Indonesia and Nigeria are two very good examples. And these are my top 2 markets, which amazingly, sometimes you'll have a market that you thought could be massive and isn't, and a market that you didn't think would be very big that's suddenly helping you out and doing really, really well. So embrace that luck as well, and don't always follow just the numbers. And that's me. Hope that was useful, and I look forward to questions at the end. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to hit the subscribe button to keep up with the latest beverage alcohol industry insights from Park Street University.